On today's episode, we will be reviewing a very well-known book, Daughters of the Dragon by William Andrews, and a very well-known show, The House of Dragon.
Exciting part. Hi everyone, welcome to Talk to Us Today. Today is the review segment of our show called Review Therapy. And as most of you would know, this is one of my favorite segments and one of the reasons that I started talking even about Talk to Us Today. Because we get to discuss what I, Simrit, have read recently. And Namita loves to discuss her latest shows and movies and sometimes books. And so today she is going to be discussing, Namita, what is it? House of Dragon. So we see a theme today, right? Dragon. Yes. So I have Daughters of the Dragon. And I don't think these books are written at all. We just happened to pick up a theme of the dragon. So I read Daughters of the Dragon. And this is completely by accident. So we are discussing, what are we going to discuss? And it just happened that both the names have dragon in it. So I don't know how well known this book is. I'm going to get to that later. Namita, I believe you loved this, right? And this is a spin-off of one of the most famous shows of all time. Is that right?
Yes, and it is. And you would not believe, Simrit, when I was in Europe, there were big ad banners everywhere about House of Dragons.
No way. No way.
Okay. It's not just like a US thing. Exactly. That was in Milan and even in Switzerland. I was like, okay, people watch that everywhere. So yes, it's a pretty well-known series. Okay, so anybody who is into or who has watched Game of Thrones. So this is the most anticipated prequel to Game of Thrones.
Oh, can I tell you a secret? And this is shameful. I'm like 1% of the world's population. I've never watched one episode of Game of Thrones. I've told you this. But I started the book and it was just too much. But I love to hear people discussing. So the prequel might, please me.
I don't know. After listening to these reviews and all, I don't know if you would want to watch it or not. Or you got the spoilers already. So I don't know.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay. So let's come to this. So, the connection of Game of Thrones to the House of Dragons, it takes us back to like 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones started.
Okay.
So it's like focusing on the Targaryen dynasty at the height of its power. And the show is all about internal struggles within the family leading up to the infamous Targaryen civil war. The Dance of Dragons, this is what they just name it as. And this war is crucial because it sets off a chain of events that eventually leads to the downfall of House of Targaryens, the dragon family, basically, and which we see as an aftermath of in Game of Thrones. So if you're a big fan of Westeros and its rich history, this series a treasure trove of a backstory.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
So now let's discuss, how different this is from Game of Thrones. While Game of Thrones was all about, those multiple storylines, there's a Westeros, there's a wall, there is a high tower, and the characters are spread across the realm. Whereas House of Dragons, it narrows its focus to one family and one conflict. This show takes its time to build tension, develop between these characters and how they actually fight to get the power to be the king or the queen, be the boss.
Right.
And
so,
which kind of, sometimes it's like, oh, it's too much, but it's still interesting. So, and the key theme here is gender dynamics, especially the fight for the female leadership. The dragon queen, as they call Rhaenyra Targaryen, which is a main character, struggles to become the first queen, highlights how female power has always been controversial, with some men feeling threatened by it. So it's no, I would say it's no new thing that has happened. But yes, in the past also such things have happened. And the show very beautifully captures the tension of this whole drama that actually happens in the family. And there's a very interesting thing which interesting or complex, I don't know what to say about this portrayal of relationships. And I was like, oh really? That's what my thought when this happened. So the House of Dragon doesn't shy away from showing the more, I would say, unconventional aspect of royal relationships. Like, I was surprised when marriage was going I mean, marriage happened between uncle and his niece. I mean, I mean, like, ये क्या हो रहा है? Like, ये क्या है?
But like all through history, whenever there's been a monarchy or a few, a royalty and kingdoms, they try to marry inside so that the kingdom doesn't get split. Like
Exactly.
Cleopatra and all those, the pharaohs, they married their real brother sisters. Now, how disgusting is that?
Yeah.
Uncle and
And in
is
this
no
also, I felt, yeah, in this also, it's like, and it's very uncomfortable, Simrit, but it's also a reminder of how far.
Yeah, incest has been there far and wide. In even like Queen Victoria, she married all her grandchildren through Europe, and then they all intermarried at some point. So because if you get all the royalty and you're going to go for arranged marriages, at some point you're going to crisscross all of, which says a lot about royalty, right?
Thank God we have come. Thank God we have come far away as a society.
Yeah, well, especially the close relationships. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Visually,
this whole series is so stunning, just like Game of Thrones. The production quality is top notch, and they were, especially the designs, and the graphics, the special effects, and the dragons. They look so real. It's like, oh wow, literally real.
Really?
Yes. And I have to admit that this show, while visually and thematically rich, I mean, it hasn't yet captured the same level of thrilling experience that was in Game of Thrones. Like the predictability wise. Yes. So the way it's like, oh my God, it was always surprised. Oh, what just happened? I couldn't feel that. So again, I would still rate it lower than Game of Thrones when it comes to, comparison.
I was going to ask you that.
No, it was beyond my expectations, which I saw, though it's a second season now.
Oh, you've watched both seasons?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, season 1 versus season 2, what's better?
Well, it's a slow, season was very fast paced. It was moving forward. Every episode, like few years been passed. But this one is a bit slow. You feel like they've been dragging it.
Okay, cool. So it's a thumbs up, but not as good as Game of Thrones.
Yeah. I'll say 3.5.
How many stars?
3.5.
Ooh, right. Just crossing the average. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I have a different review for you all together. This is from what I'm going to be discussing. This is Daughters of the Dragon, and at least in India and UK, this book is very hard to come about. It's not available on Amazon. It's not available in the bookshop.
Yeah, I remember that.
I don't know how. I've actually borrowed my friends and read it, but what a book. This is a phenomenal book. And I have to say kudos to William Andrews for doing this story. Now, it's a historical fiction book, which is set on the Japanese occupation of Korea. It starts really interesting with
there are no dragons as such, right? In this one.
There's no real dragons. This is historical fiction, and this book is about comfort women. Like we discussed Dust Child, but this is comfort women, like we did The Dutch Wife. So in the war, they always had these comfort women, which is basically sexual slavery. The Korean women were taken from their homes, young girls, saying they're going to work in a boot factory, or that was what they said in this Japanese occupation of Korea. And then they were put in brothels, no pay, obviously, beaten, treated badly. If they got pregnant, they were, left to die, more or less. I mean, they would give them medical treatment, but it was very shallow. The hospitals were not meant for them. So this, and the way the book story, and this is all, William Andrews has done a brilliant job in researching.
What is the era? What is the era in the book? What time are we talking about?
So it's about World War I and the history, and this happens in World War II too. So that's why it gets confusing sometimes. But this book is particularly about World War I. Yeah. So this is Japanese occupation of Korea before the division. And it's interesting because the backdrop is then this spans over decades. So it's basically this adopted girl goes back to find her mother. She doesn't find her mother somehow, which is not really clear. There are some loopholes in the story, but the background is so beautifully done. So the grandmother ends up seeing her, and she hands her a comb with a dragon on it. And this this comb is the dragon and the house of dragon that protects them. They're supposedly ancestrally connected to the kingdoms and to the queen of Korea. And then they discuss. So first, the grandmother talks, and it's all first person because this grandmother tells her granddaughter, who was adopted, who she's not met until she was an adult, she's 20 years old or whatever, the adopted girl, and she tells her how she was taken away from home. And the Japanese, basically, they call them like, they do the soldiers. So they were drafted, and then they had to go away from home, her and her sister, and this comb came with them. And so the story revolves around this comb a little bit. But then how she became a comfort woman, then how she was saved from being executed, because when the Americans came, what the Japanese did to the Korean comfort women was kill them all. So there are a lot of books now that are coming up about the comfort women, whereas for years, Korea tried to suppress that. Many of our Asian communities didn't want to discuss this because of the simple reason that, we should not talk about it, how our women were taken as slaves. And even today, and so the historical accuracy that Andrews has brought to this novel is amazing, because even today, whatever women are left over from the war, those old ladies go to the Japanese embassy once a week in solidarity and ask them that you have to apologize what you've done to us. You've killed our whole generation of women.
Wow, really?
Even and the main character, Jae-hee, is a complex, relatable character, because you follow her through the story. And most of my friends and people who have read this book with me, we finished it in 2 days because you can't put it down. And we had the same opinion, all of us, that in the end, you're like, I can't wait for it to be over because I want to read it, but I don't want it to be over because it's so beautifully written. And so the history is amazing. The emotional impact is that this book stays with you afterwards. It's heartbreaking. There are points where you want to cry. There are points where you're like, okay, this is a little, like it sounds really great. Yet you don't understand how the comb saved her. But it's a story of, inspiration and how you can get through anything in life. And even when things seem hard, and what is getting through something, survival, resilience of the women, it's just phenomenal. So kudos. For me, this is close to a 5 out of 5. Seriously.
Wow. Amazing, review about this book, Simrit, and you gave 5 star. You were so, difficult
with my mom.
Yeah.
Even though stuff doesn't sound real, but it's worth the story. I mean, I get it. You're writing a story at the end of the day.
I really have to grab it from somewhere or something.
Yes.
I really should read it now.
Yeah, I'll ask I can lend this to you, but it's my friends.
Okay. Okay, so we have 5 star for the book Daughter of Dragon from Simrit.
Daughters of the Dragon, yes.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the Marvel story.
Or Game of Thrones or House of Dragons. And 3.5 star for House of Dragon from my side. Well, I think that's all on TalkTous today. If you like our show, do let us know in the comment section, or you can email us at hello@talktoustoday.com and let your friends know where to find us.
And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell to stay notified of our videos every Friday at 6 p.m. Thanks for joining us on Talk to Us Today. Remember to talk about Talk to Us Today. Keep smiling, keep laughing, keep talking, keep reading,
keep watching.
Keep watching us.
Yes.
Okay, guys, thank you. Friday. Bye.